My name is Natalie Pierce. I am 31 years old, and on the Monday after Father's Day, my mother invoiced me for my childhood. The email hit my phone at 6:12 a.m. while I was still in bed in Atlanta, staring at the ceiling and trying to talk myself into another workday. The subject line read, "Final statement. Costs incurred for Natalie." She copied 62 people. Every aunt and uncle, every cousin, every spouse, every in-law, and even my grandmother's church friend, who somehow always ended up on our family threads. My mother, Lillian Pierce, has always loved an audience. The body of the email was formatted like an invoice from a law firm. Column headings, neat rows, a grand total in bold. Beneath it, a single sentence. Payment due within 30 days. Failure to comply will be treated as continued disrespect. Then she added a line that made my stomach go cold. Since Natalie has always responded best to documentation, I'm documenting this for the whole family. For a few seconds, I just stared at the screen, not because I was shocked that she could be cruel, but because she had finally decided to make it public. My phone started buzzing as the copied relatives began replying to each other in little bursts of confusion. My mother's plan was obvious. Humiliate me in front of everyone. Make me defend myself. Make me look ungrateful. If I protested, she would play the martyr. If I stayed quiet, she would win. I set my phone face down on the nightstand and listened to the hum of the air conditioner. My apartment was small and plain, the kind of place that felt like a clean slate. I had built that on purpose. No family photos, no heirlooms, just me and the quiet. A year ago, I would have panicked. I would have called my sister. I would have tried to smooth it over. I would have swallowed it like I always did. But I had been preparing for this email for 3 years. I work as a forensic accountant for a mid-sized firm in Atlanta. My job is to untangle messy money, corporate fraud, embezzlement, divorce assets. People think they can hide things inside accounting. They think numbers can be bullied into lying. Numbers can't be bullied. People can. And my mother has spent my whole life trying to bully me into a version of myself that made her comfortable. I didn't reply right away. I got out of bed, made coffee, and watched the sunrise push pale orange through the blinds. Then I opened my laptop and clicked a folder I had named Receipts. Inside were scanned statements, screenshots, emails, PDFs, and one plain photo I had taken on a rainy afternoon outside a bank. My mother thought her invoice would make me collapse. Instead, it gave me permission. I forwarded her email back to all 62 people and wrote 4 words above the attachments. Here is the ledger. Then I attached the photo. And I pressed send. For a full minute, nothing happened. The world held its breath. Then my phone started exploding. Not with calls from my mother, not at first, with messages from relatives who suddenly realized the story they had been told about me. The difficult daughter, the ungrateful daughter, the always something daughter, had been hiding a financial crime. The first text came from my Aunt Jean. "Natalie, is this real?" Then my cousin Lacey. "Holy, your mom did what?" Then my Uncle Stuart. "I'm calling your dad." My mother called at 6:31 a.m., 19 minutes after she sent her invoice. I let it ring. She called again. I let it ring. A third time. I answered. Natalie, voice sweet like poison in honey. "I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to undo it. I think I'm balancing accounts." "You are humiliating me," she hissed. "You forwarded an invoice titled Costs Incurred for Natalie to 62 people calmly. You started the meeting. I brought the paperwork." I could hear her breathing hard, the sound of someone used to being obeyed. "You are ruining Father's Day," she snapped. "It's Monday. Father's Day was yesterday. That weekend is about family," as if she could decree reality. "And you're making it about money." I almost laughed. "You literally invoiced me." She switched tactics. "You always do this." Voice trembling now. "You always make me the villain. You have no idea what it took to raise you. You were never easy. You were never grateful. You—" "Mom," I interrupted. "Stop." Silence. You don't get to rewrite my life as a bill, and you don't get to steal from me and call it parenting." "What did you send them?" she demanded. "The truth." She whispered something sharp, then hung up. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone like it was something heavy. Outside, Atlanta was waking up. Cars, birds, distant sirens. Ordinary life. I had just detonated mine. If you had asked me 5 years ago whether my mother could commit identity theft, tax fraud, and theft from a trust set up for me as a child, I would have said no. Not because she was too moral, because I couldn't imagine her risking her image. That's what I got wrong. My mother will risk anything to protect the story she tells about herself. To understand how we got here, you need to understand my family's favorite roles. My sister Harper was the golden child. She is 34, 3 years older than me, and the kind of woman who could walk into a room and make you feel like you were lucky she noticed you. She was valedictorian, cheer captain, law school, big corporate job in Charlotte. She married a man with perfect teeth and a LinkedIn headshot that looked like it came with a warranty. I was the kid my mother called complicated. I wasn't rebellious. I wasn't wild. I didn't drink or sneak out or vandalize anything. Questions. That was my crime. When Harper got an A, my mother framed it. When I got an A, my why it wasn't an A+. When Harper cried, my mother comforted her. When I cried, my mother corrected me. "Don't be dramatic, Natalie. Stop making a scene, Natalie. Why can't you be more like your sister?" My father, Daniel Pierce, did what he could. He is the kind of man who tries to keep peace by becoming smaller. He works in IT, quiet, steady. He taught me how to ride a bike and how to change a tire and how to grill a steak without setting it on fire. He came to my high school baseball games even when I sat on the bench. But when my mother sharpened, he softened. "Your mom's stressed," he would say. "Just give her time. She means well." I used to believe him. Then I learned a different kind of math, the math of patterns. The first time I realized something in our family wasn't just emotional, but financial was my freshman year of college. Harper went to a private university and graduated debt-free. I went to a state school in Georgia and still came out with loans. When my mother, why my 529 education fund had run out, it had been used for enrichment programs and extra tutoring when I was younger. I didn't remember any enrichment programs. I remembered being told we couldn't afford the science camp I wanted. I remembered wearing the same sneakers for 2 years. I remembered my mother buying a new SUV the summer before I left for college. At 19, I didn't put it together. I was too busy trying to survive adulthood. The second time I realized something was wrong was at 22, when I moved to Atlanta for my first job. My credit score was so low, a landlord asked me if I had ever declared bankruptcy. I had never even owned a credit card. When I pulled my credit report, 3 accounts stared back at me. Opened while I was in college, maxed out, delinquent. The mailing address for all 3, my parents' house in Greenville, South Carolina. I called my mother in a panic. She sighed like I was inconveniencing her. "Oh, that. I used your name because my credit was tied up in some things. It was easier. I was going to pay it off." Mom, voice shaking. "That's identity theft. It's family flatly. Don't make it weird." Then she added something that still makes my skin prickle. "You owe us, Natalie. You have no idea what you cost." That sentence became the foundation for everything. I didn't report her then. I tried to clean it up quietly because I still thought, somewhere in the back of my mind, that if I solved the problem without making a fuss, she would finally be proud of me. I hired a consumer attorney. I disputed the accounts. I documented. I learned. And the more I learned, the more I started pulling at threads. I requested old statements for 529 records. I paid for a tax transcript from the IRS. I did it slowly, carefully, because a part of me still didn't want to see what I suspected. In the 3rd year of this quiet digging, I found the thing that made me stop trying to protect her. My mother had claimed me as a dependent for 4 years after I moved out. Not accidentally, deliberately. She took the credits, the refunds, the benefits, And the IRS had been sending notices to my old address, the house where she lived. She intercepted them. That's when I started building my folder, receipts. Not because I wanted revenge, because I knew one day she would try to make me the problem in public, and I refused to walk into that trap empty-handed. The day she sent her invoice, she didn't know that I had already reconstructed our family's finances like a crime scene. She didn't know I had already spoken to a tax attorney. She didn't know my grandmother had already started asking questions. And she definitely didn't know that Harper's perfect life had a crack running through it, too. The reason my mother chose the Monday after Father's Day was simple. She was using the weekend as a stage. Every year, my family gathered at my grandmother Ruth's house in Asheville, North Carolina. Grandma Ruth is my dad's mother. She is 76, sharp, elegant, and the only person in our family who has ever looked my mother in the eye without flinching. Grandma Ruth loves tradition. She hosts, she cooks. She sets the long table with real napkins and the good plates. She makes the men carry chairs and makes the kids wash their hands. My mother loves Grandma Ruth's house because it looks like stability. It looks like a Norman Rockwell painting. It looks like the story she wants everyone to believe. This year, she announced a legacy dinner for my father, a celebration of what it means to be a good father. She created a group chat called Pierce Legacy Weekend. Everyone to be there. No excuses. Harper called me 2 weeks before the trip. So you're coming early, right? Mom wants help setting up. Does Mom want help, or does Mom want me to do it? Harper laughed like it was cute. Don't be dramatic. I could have said no, I could have stayed in Atlanta, but my father was the only reason I was going. Because whatever my mother did, my father had still shown up for me in the ways he knew how. And I wanted to see his face when people told him he mattered. So I drove up on Saturday morning. 7 hours of highway and podcasts and silence. When I arrived at Grandma Ruth's, my mother was already there with Harper, rearranging the living room like a set designer. Finally, when I walked in, take those folding chairs to the porch. And Natalie, don't wear that. You look like you slept in it. I was wearing a clean button down. I carry chairs anyway. Grandma Ruth found me in the kitchen rinsing strawberries. She touched my elbow gently. You look tired. I'm fine, I lied. She studied me the way she studies a recipe she suspects is missing an ingredient. I heard about the email quietly. My hands paused under the faucet. You've seen it already? Natalie, your mother copied the entire East Coast? I almost smiled despite myself. Grandma Ruth leaned closer. If you need to leave, you leave. You do not have to stand in front of people and be humiliated. I'm not leaving. She searched my face. Why? Because this time I came with paperwork. A flicker of something like approval crossed her expression. Good. Then let me give you one piece of advice. What? Do not raise your voice. When people like your mother feel the room turning, they will try to paint you as unstable. Let them see you steady. I nodded. Sunday morning, the house filled. Aunts with casseroles, uncles with bourbon, cousins with kids dragging backpacks and complaining about Wi-Fi. Everyone hugging everyone like we were a happy family. My mother floated through it, laughing too loudly, complimenting everyone, directing traffic. Harper stood beside her. Perfect hair, perfect smile. My father arrived last because he had insisted on stopping to buy Grandma Ruth's favorite flowers. He walked in holding a bouquet like an apology to the world. Mom kissed him on the cheek and announced, "Everyone, Daniel's here," like she was introducing a celebrity. Dad looked startled, then smiled. He deserved better than her performance. The dinner started at 6. My mother had arranged the table so that she and my father sat at the head, Harper at my mother's right, and me at the far end near the kitchen. Closer to the dishes, when I sat down, as if it was a joke. The meal was actually good. Grandma Ruth's roasted chicken, green beans, cornbread, the kind of food that tastes like someone cared. For the first half hour, it almost felt normal. Then my mother stood up with a wine glass. Before dessert, voice bright, I want to talk about sacrifice. A few people chuckled, expecting a sweet toast. My mother looked at my father. Daniel, you have been such a good father. Dad's cheeks turned pink. And as a mother, she continued, I think it's time we acknowledge what it costs to raise a child. She paused dramatically. There are children who give back, and there are children who take and take and take. Heat crawled up my neck. I watched Grandma Ruth. Her face was still. My mother pulled a gold frame from a gift bag and held it up like a certificate. This is the total cost of raising Natalie. People laughed awkwardly. My mother did not laugh. She read the total aloud, like a judge announcing a sentence. $412,380. My cousin Lacey dropped her fork. My mother turned the frame around so everyone could see the printed ledger. Hospital bills, clothing, food, school supplies, attitude counseling, extra supervision, replacement items due to carelessness. She had labeled it like I was a broken appliance. Then the line she had been practicing. And since Natalie is so good with numbers now, she can finally pay us back. The room went quiet. My father stared at the frame, confused. Lillian softly, What is this? It's accountability, Mai. Something Natalie has never learned. She looked down the table at me and smiled like she had pinned me to a wall. Nobody likes to talk about the truth, but the truth matters. I set my napkin down. I remembered Grandma Ruth's advice. Do not raise your voice. So I didn't. I stood up slowly, like I was presenting at work. You're right. The truth matters. My mother's smile tightened. And since we're sharing numbers, I continued. I brought mine. Her eyebrows twitched. Natalie, don't do this, she warned. I pulled out my phone. My mother had framed her ledger. She had performed her cruelty. Now it was my turn to present the audit. I sent everyone an email this morning. If you haven't opened it, you should. Chairs shifted. Phones appeared in hands. Screens lit up. My mother's face drained a shade lighter. You had no right, she whispered. You copied 62 people. That was your invitation. I looked around the table. The first attachment is a statement for my 529 education account. Aunt Jean frowned. Natalie, what is that? A college savings plan. Grandma Ruth and Grandpa Bill set one up for me when I was 9. Grandma Ruth's lips pressed together. I continued. It contained $55,000 by the time I graduated high school. My mother opened her mouth. I held up a finger. On July 18, 2010, 2 weeks after Harper turned 18, her 529 paid tuition directly to her university. Harper's eyes flicked to her phone. On August 2, 2010, my 529 was liquidated in full and transferred into a checking account in my mother's name. The table made a sound like it had collectively inhaled. My Uncle Stuart leaned forward. Lillian, is that true? My mother laughed too quickly. It was used for family expenses. I nodded as if I expected that answer. 1 week later, a cashier's check was issued from that same account for the down payment on a Lexus SUV. Someone gasped. I saw it from the corner of my eye. My cousin's wife, hand to mouth. My father's face went pale. Lillian again, quieter. My mother snapped, Daniel, don't start. Natalie is twisting things. I'm reading bank statements. Bank statements don't twist. My mother's jaw tightened. I swiped to the second attachment. The next document is an IRS transcript. Uncle Stuart, who had done taxes for half the family for decades, straightened. Natalie, why do you have that? Because I received an audit notice. After I filed correctly, the IRS flagged that someone else had been claiming me as a dependent. The room turned toward my mother. From 2017 to 2020, I lived in Atlanta. I paid my own rent, I paid my own car insurance, I paid my own health insurance. But my mother claimed me as a dependent and collected credits and refunds under my Social Security number. My Aunt Jean's voice was a whisper. That's fraud. It is. My mother slammed her wineglass down. That is none of your business. She snapped at the room, then turned on me. How dare you accuse me of crimes in front of family? You accused me of being a disappointment in dollars evenly. You started the public accounting. Harper's husband, Grant, looked up sharply. Harper, under his breath, what is happening? Harper's lips parted and closed again. I moved to the third attachment. And finally, these are credit card statements. My mother shook her head violently. No, like a child. 3 accounts opened in my name between 2016 and 2018. The mailing address, my parents' house. Dad's eyes shut for a second. Total balance at the peak, $49,860. A low murmur rose. And the shipping address for many of the purchases, I continued, was not my parents' house. I looked at Harper. Harper's face turned the color of paper. It was Harper's condo in Charlotte. Grant's head snapped toward her. What? Harper stood up so fast her chair scraped. Natalie, voice breaking, stop. I'm not accusing you of being the mastermind. I'm telling the room where the boxes went. Grant's voice was tight. Harper, did you know about this? Harper's eyes darted to our mother. My mother stepped in like a shield. This is a smear campaign, she barked. Natalie has always been jealous of Harper. She's trying to tear her down because she can't stand that Harper is successful. I didn't look at my mother. I looked at my father. Dad's hands were gripping the table edge. Lillian, tell me the truth. My mother's gaze went hard. You want truth? Rising. Fine. Her eyes locked on me. You want to know why I've been hard on you? You want to know why I've struggled with you? I felt the room lean forward. My mother loved a reveal. You've never made it easy for me, voice shaking with fury. You think you're so righteous now with your little spreadsheets. You think you can stand there and judge me. She pointed at my father. Daniel doesn't even know the whole truth. My father froze. My mother looked back at me. Natalie, voice low and vicious. If you keep pushing, I will tell them why you were never really his. The room went so quiet, I could hear the ceiling fan. My father's face did something I will never forget. It didn't show surprise. It showed pain. That was the moment I realized my mother's biggest weapon wasn't a secret. It was a threat. And she was about to swing it. I took a slow breath. Mom, you don't get to use that as a knife anymore. Her eyes narrowed. Oh! I lifted my phone. There is one more attachment. My mother's confidence flickered. This one is a screenshot of a text you sent Harper 2 years ago. Harper made a small sound. I looked at the room. I wasn't planning to show this. I kept it because I hoped I would never need it. But my mother decided to hang my humiliation above the fireplace, so we're past hoping. I tapped send. Even though I had already emailed it that morning, some relatives hadn't opened my first message yet. Now phones chimed again, screens refreshed. A ripple passed through faces as they read. My Aunt Jean's hand flew to her mouth. My Uncle Stuart swore under his breath. My grandmother Ruth closed her eyes. My mother lunged toward me like she could snatch the phone out of the air. Grant stepped between us instinctively, shocked. What did you do? My mother shrieked. I didn't answer her. I watched my father. Dad stared at his phone. His face was blank for a second. Then he swallowed hard. The screenshot was a message from my mother to Harper. I can't stand looking at her. It read, every time I see Natalie, I remember what I did. If Daniel ever finds out the truth about Natalie, he will leave me. Keep Natalie in line. Keep her grateful. She owes us. The text was dated 2 years earlier. It was not a confession of love. It was a confession of fear. My father put his phone down with shaking hands. Daniel, my quickly voice switching to pleading. Daniel, that was years ago. That was in a moment. You know how Natalie manipulates? Dad stood up. He didn't shout. He didn't throw anything. He just stood. Natalie doesn't manipulate my voice quiet. Natalie documents. My mother's breath hitched. Dad looked at the table, at the faces, at my grandmother, then at me. Can we talk me softly? I nodded. We walked out onto the porch together. The mountain air hit my skin like cold water. Behind us, I could hear the table erupting into overlapping voices, people demanding explanations, my mother trying to regain control, Harper crying. Dad leaned against the porch railing. His hands shook. "I'm sorry." For what? For not stopping it. For believing her when I wanted peace more than I wanted truth. He swallowed hard. "And for letting you think? For letting you think you were alone." I stared at him. "Dad, did you know?" He didn't answer right away. Then he nodded once. "I knew something wasn't right. When you were a baby, my mom, Ruth, you didn't look like me. Her to stop. I didn't want to hear it." He stared out at the trees. Then there were little things. Lillian getting defensive. Lillian refusing a blood type test when you were sick. Lillian saying I was being paranoid of questions. He exhaled. "One night when you were 8, she admitted it. She cried. It was a mistake. She was terrified. If I left, everyone would hate her. And you would grow up without a dad. Her I would stay. But her something else, too." He turned to me. "Her you were my daughter. No matter what biology said, you were my daughter." My throat tightened. "And then," he added, voice breaking, "I let her punish you for it." I shook my head slowly. "Dad, I never needed you to fight her with your fists. I needed you to stand next to me when she did it." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I know," he whispered. We stood there for a long moment, listening to muffled chaos from inside. Then my father straightened. "We need to do something." "About what?" "About your money." "About what she did to you?" He paused. "And about your mother." I looked at him. "Dad, what I need from you is simple." He waited. "Choose the truth, even if it costs you comfort." My father nodded once, like a man making a decision he had been postponing for decades. When we walked back inside, the scene had shifted. Half the relatives were standing, some were leaving, some were shouting questions at my mother. Harper sat with her face in her hands. Grant stood beside her like he wasn't sure if he should protect her or confront her. My grandmother Ruth sat at the end of the table, still and composed. She had that look she gets when she is done entertaining nonsense. "Enough," Grandma Ruth said, voice low but carrying. The room quieted as if she had flipped a switch. She looked directly at my mother. "Lillian, you have 2 options." My mother blinked, stunned that someone was speaking to her like an adult. "Option 1, Grandma Ruth said. You stand here and explain to this family why my grandson's college fund was stolen and why his identity was used as a credit card." My mother's mouth opened. "Option 2, Grandma Ruth continued. You pack your things and leave my house." My mother stared at her, then laughed, brittle. "You can't throw me out. Daniel is your son. I'm his wife. This is family." Grandma Ruth's expression didn't change. Family is not a license. Family is a responsibility. My mother looked to my father for rescue. Dad didn't move. My mother's eyes widened. "Daniel," she whispered. My father's voice was quiet. "Pack your things." For a second, my mother looked like she had been slapped. Then her face twisted into rage. "You're choosing him," she spat. "I'm choosing truth." My mother grabbed her purse and stormed toward the hallway, then stopped, turning back to the room. "This family will regret this. You'll all come crawling back when you realize what he really is." No one answered. She left. Harper made a small, broken sound. "Mom," she whispered, like a child. Grandma Ruth turned her gaze to Harper. "Harper, did you know?" Harper's shoulders shook. "Not at first," she whispered. "I swear, not at first." Grant's voice was sharp. "At first?" Harper flinched. Harper wiped her face with trembling hands. "Me, it was temporary," Harper said. "Me, Natalie's credit was clean, and she was just using it to get a better rate and she would fix it. Me, not to ask questions. Me, Natalie didn't deserve help because she was ungrateful." She looked at me, eyes red. "I didn't want to see it," she admitted. "I didn't want to be the one she turned on." Grant stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. I didn't feel triumph. I felt tired. That night, most relatives left early. The legacy dinner ended with half a pie untouched, and the framed invoice sitting crooked on the mantel like a cheap trophy. Grandma Ruth took it down herself, carried it to the trash, and dropped it in without ceremony. Trash belongs in trash. I slept in the guest room where I used to sleep as a kid, staring at the ceiling and listening to the house settle. My phone kept buzzing with messages from relatives. Apologies, shock, questions, support. I didn't answer most of them. At 2:47 a.m., my grandmother knocked on my door. "Get dressed." "What?" I muttered. "Now." I followed her downstairs, confused. In the study, an older man in a suit sat with a briefcase on his lap. He stood when we entered. "Natalie," Grandma Ruth said, "this is Martin Klein." The name clicked. Martin Klein was the family attorney. He had handled my grandfather Bill's estate. Martin shook my hand. Mr. Pierce gently. Grandma Ruth sat behind her desk. I called Martin tonight. And I called my banker. And I called my accountant. My stomach tightened. "Grandma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Because for years, I watched a girl." She paused, correcting herself. "I watched Lillian treat you like an inconvenience. And myself, Daniel would handle it. Daniel did not handle it. So now I will." Martin opened his briefcase and slid documents across the desk. Grandma Ruth pointed at a highlighted paragraph. "My will is being amended." I blinked. "Grandma, I don't—" "Listen," Martin spoke calmly. "Mrs. Pierce has decided to restructure her estate plan into a trust that protects assets from spouses and creditors, effective immediately." Grandma Ruth's eyes held mine. "Your mother will not touch a dime of anything that has my name on it." My throat tightened. "And," she added, "I am also authorizing Martin to file a demand letter for restitution regarding your 529 withdrawals." I stared at her. "I want you to understand," voice steady, "this is not about punishing your mother. This is about correcting what was stolen from you." Martin slid another envelope toward me. "Mrs. Pierce had intended to give you this when you graduated college." I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a check for $20,000, dated 5 years earlier, and a note in my grandmother's handwriting. "Natalie, you have always been worth showing up for. If you ever need me, you do not ask permission. You simply come." I swallowed hard. My grandmother looked away, as if the softness embarrassed her. Lillian intercepted it. "Me, you didn't want help. Me, you wanted to prove yourself." My hands shook. "Grandma," I whispered. I believed her, voice tight. "I regret that." Martin cleared his throat. "There is more." He pulled out a folder. Inside were copies of bank statements I had never seen. Grandma Ruth tapped one line. "This is the transfer of your 529 into Lillian's account." She tapped another. "This is the cashier's check for the Lexus." She tapped another. "This is a credit application using your social security number." I stared at the paper like it was a mirror, reflecting a childhood I hadn't fully understood. "I want you to decide what happens next," Grandma Ruth said. "You can keep this private and let the family deal with it quietly. Or you can take it to the authorities. Either way, you will have support. You will not be alone." I thought about that for a long time, because taking it to authorities meant scorched earth. It meant my mother could face charges. It meant my father would be dragged through it. It meant Harper's life would be examined too. But keeping it private meant my mother could do it again. To me, to someone else. I looked up at Martin. "What's the simplest path that protects me and stops her?" Martin nodded like he expected that question. "We can start with civil action, restitution, freeze access, notify creditors, correct records, and we can prepare criminal referrals if she escalates." Grandma Ruth watched me. "Natalie, you do not owe anyone your silence." At 3:22 a.m., I made my decision. I want my name cleared. I want my accounts corrected. And I want a boundary. Grandma Ruth nodded. Good. The next morning, my father sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee he wasn't drinking. "I'm filing for separation quietly." I stared at him. "Dad, are you sure?" He nodded. "I should have done it years ago." He looked at me, eyes wet. "And Natalie," he added, "I want you to hear this clearly." I waited. "You are my daughter. I don't care what biology says." The words landed in my chest like a weight and a relief at the same time. We hugged, awkward, stiff at first, then tighter, like a man trying to hold on to something he almost lost. Later that afternoon, Harper asked to speak to me. We stood on the back porch while the mountain sun warmed the wood. "I'm sorry," Harper said immediately. I didn't respond. "I know that doesn't fix anything," she rushed, "but I need you to know I didn't know about your 529. I didn't know about the IRS thing. I knew about the credit cards, yes, but I believed her when she would fix it. And then I didn't want to look deeper. I didn't want to see the truth." I looked at her. "Because the truth would cost you." Harper nodded, tears spilling. "Yes," she whispered. "Because the version of our family where mom is good and I'm good and you're the problem." It was comfortable. That comfort was built on my back. "I know. I know." Grant stepped outside then. His face was pale. Taking the kids to my brothers to Harper, voice flat. Harper's eyes widened. "Grant, I need time." He looked at me. "Natalie, I'm sorry, I didn't know." I nodded once. Harper watched him leave, then turned back to me, devastated. "I'm losing everything," she whispered. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt the sadness of watching a house collapse that was always rotten. "You're not losing everything. You're losing denial." She sobbed. I went back to Atlanta that night, alone in my car, the mountains fading behind me. On the drive, my mother called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Her voice was not sweet anymore. "You think you're so smart," she hissed. "You think you've won. You don't know who you're dealing with. I will destroy you. I will tell everyone what you are. You hear me? I will eat." Then the voicemail cut off. I saved it. Because documentation is not cruelty. Documentation is protection. Over the next 3 months, the fallout moved like weather. The family group chat fractured into smaller chats. Some relatives apologized. Some defended my mother out of habit. Some stayed silent because silence was their addiction. But the one thing my mother could not control anymore was the narrative, because the narrative had receipts. Martin Klein sent demand letters. Credit bureaus were notified. A fraud affidavit was filed. The IRS opened a formal review. The bank that had processed the 529 withdrawal was asked for documentation. And when they realized the withdrawal had been executed under questionable authority, they cooperated with a restitution plan. My mother tried to call me from new numbers. I blocked them. She emailed my work address once, a long message about how I was emotionally abusive. I forwarded it to HR with a brief explanation and then to my attorney. She showed up at my apartment building in Atlanta one Tuesday evening. The doorman called up. "There's a woman downstairs asking for you." I looked out the peephole down the hallway like she could see me through walls. I didn't go down. I texted the doorman. "Please tell her I'm not available." 10 minutes later, the doorman called again. "She's making a scene, saying you stole from her." I took a breath and called the non-emergency line. When the officers arrived, my mother smiled at them and tried to charm them. It didn't work. They escorted her out. I watched through the lobby camera feed as she turned back and looked up at my building like she was promising me a war. For the first time in my life, my hands did not shake, because I wasn't a child anymore, and she didn't get to punish me for existing. Meanwhile, my father moved into a small rental near his office. The separation turned into divorce when my mother refused mediation and tried to demand compensation for raising me. That phrase again. The judge did not appreciate it. Harper's marriage cracked. Grant didn't divorce her immediately, but he demanded counseling and full transparency. Harper paid back what she could. She admitted she had received packages. She produced receipts. She apologized again. I didn't forgive her right away. But I did something else. The truth. If you want a relationship with me, it will never be built on mom's version of reality. Harper nodded, exhausted. I know. Grandma Ruth became the anchor. Every Wednesday, she called me at 7:30 p.m. Exactly. How are your accounts? She would ask. Better, I would say. How is your heart? She would ask. That question was harder. One evening, 6 months after the legacy dinner, my father drove to Atlanta to see me. He sat on my couch, looking around my small apartment like he was trying to memorize it. I should have come sooner. You're here now. He nodded. I've been thinking about who you might want to talk to. My stomach tightened. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. It's a name and a number. I didn't touch it. Me. That the man's name was Mark? I stared at the paper. I never tried to find him quietly, because I didn't want biology to complicate what I felt. But now it might be your choice. I took the paper. Mark Alvarez, a number in Ohio. I sat there for a long time. My father watched me like he was braced for anger. I wasn't angry. I was sad. Not because my father wasn't my biological father, because my mother had made that fact into a weapon and aimed it at a child. I don't know if I want to call him, I admitted. Dad nodded. You don't have to. He leaned forward. But Natalie, voice firm. If you do, you don't do it because you think you're missing something? I looked at him. You're not missing a father. You have one. Me. Call him only if you want to know another part of your story. Not because you think you need permission to be whole. My throat burned. Okay, I whispered. A week later, a letter arrived at my apartment. No return address, postmarked from Columbus. Inside was a single page. Natalie, my name is Mark Alvarez. I took a DNA test after my me. She saw your name mentioned in a thread online. I didn't know you existed. I'm not asking for anything. I'm not trying to insert myself into your life. I just want you to know I'm here if you ever want to talk. I'm sorry I didn't know. If you want to know medical history or just ask questions, I will answer. If you want nothing, I will respect that too. At the bottom was a phone number and a sentence that made me stare at the page until my eyes blurred. Your mom never told me she was pregnant. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. Some truths arrive like lightning. Some arrive like a hand on the shoulder. I wasn't ready for that one, but I was ready for something else. Boundaries. My mother sent another email 8 months later. Not to the whole family. To me. The subject line. We need to talk. The body was short. Natalie, you've made your point. This has gone too far. I'm willing to forgive you if you apologize for humiliating me. We can start over if you agree to stop involving lawyers. Your father is being manipulated by Ruth and Harper is being dramatic. You have always been sensitive. Come home. We can fix this. I read it twice, then I forwarded it to my attorney. And I didn't reply. Because her version of starting over required me to carry her lie again. And I was done being the person who carried her shame. 1 year after the legacy dinner, my credit score had recovered. My fraudulent accounts were closed and marked as identity theft. The IRS had corrected my records. A restitution agreement was in place. My mother had been ordered to repay a portion of the stolen funds through civil court. It wasn't everything, and it wouldn't erase the years of stress. But it was something. More importantly, my life was quiet again. My father and I began a new tradition. Every Sunday evening we talked on the phone. Not about my mother, not about court dates, about normal things. Work, food, the Braves, how the dogwood trees were doing. Harper and I spoke occasionally. It was awkward, careful. Sometimes we talked about nothing at all, just exchanged small updates like people rebuilding a bridge one plank at a time. Grandma Ruth remained steady. One night on the phone, something that finally cracked the last piece of guilt that had been lodged in me. Natalie, do you know why your mother's invoice failed? I exhaled. Because it was cruel? Yes. But more than that. What? because it assumed you still needed her to define you. A bill is a claim of authority. It says, I own the story, but you do not belong to her story anymore. I sat on my couch and stared at my hands. You never belonged to her story, she added gently. You belong to your own. You just forgot. After I hung up, I walked to the window and looked out at Atlantis lights. I thought about the boy I had been, sitting at a kitchen table in Greenville while my mother explained why my sister deserved more. I thought about the man I was now, holding documents, holding boundaries, holding his own name. I thought about my father saying, You are my daughter. I thought about Grandma Ruth saying, You do not owe anyone your silence. And I thought about the simplest truth that took me 31 years to learn. You can love someone and still refuse to be harmed by them. You can honor the good parts of your past without staying trapped inside the bad parts. You can be grateful for survival without pretending the damage was acceptable. My mother wanted to send a bill and make me smaller. Instead, she reminded me why I built my life on facts. Because facts are steady. And when your whole childhood is built on shifting blame, steadiness is freedom. If you are listening to this and you recognize yourself in the scapegoat seat at your family table, I want to tell you something I wish someone had told me when I was 19 and confused and still trying to earn love by being quiet. Your worth is not negotiable. You do not have to pay for someone else's guilt. You do not have to accept cruelty as the price of belonging. And when someone tries to invoice you for the right to exist, you are allowed to do something radical. You are allowed to send the ledger, not to destroy them, to finally protect yourself. That's what I did. And for the first time in my life, the story I'm living feels like mine.